If you've spent any time studying military history, you already know that wars are rarely decided by the weapons we celebrate. They're decided by the tools we overlook. Before we begin, if you value serious historical analysis, especially the kind that digs beneath surface narratives, I'd encourage you to subscribe to The Prepper Historian. This channel is for those who understand that survival, resilience, and long-term thinking matter more than headlines. Now, here's something most people don't realize about the Korean War. Despite jets screaming over the Yalu River and modern artillery reshaping entire ridgelines, thousands of soldiers survived the brutal Korean winters and mountainous terrain, not because of cutting-edge technology, but because of tools that would have been familiar to men 5,000 years ago. While generals debated air superiority and armoured manoeuvre, survival on the ground often depended on something far older than gunpowder. And that tool wasn't a rifle. It was the digging tool, specifically the entrenching tool, a direct descendant of ancient spades and mattocks that have shaped human survival since the Bronze Age. What sounds primitive, even unimpressive, was often more decisive than the most advanced weapons of the 20th century. Let's examine why. Long before standing armies existed, the digging tool defined whether a settlement survived. Archaeological evidence from Mesopotamia, Egypt, and early Chinese civilizations shows organized earthworks dating back at least 5,000 years. Defensive ditches, ramparts, irrigation canals, grain storage pits, none of it existed without shaped wood, bone, and later bronze digging implements. The lesson is simple. Digging precedes survival. When bronze spades emerged around 3000 BCE, they didn't just improve farming efficiency, they transformed defensive strategy. Earth became a weapon. A trench changes an arrow's trajectory. A berm alters a cavalry charge. A ditch reshapes a battlefield. In every era since, the side that reshapes terrain survives longer. Modern audiences tend to focus on offensive capability, range, firepower, mobility. Ancient armies understood something different. Survival is defensive engineering first. That mindset never disappeared. It simply became less visible. By 1950, warfare had entered the jet age. The United States deployed advanced aircraft, artillery systems, and mechanized units. Yet once Chinese forces entered the war and fighting shifted into the mountains, the conflict devolved into brutal, static engagements across ridgelines and frozen hills. And that is where ancient logic returned. Infantry units dug in. Not casually, not symbolically. They excavated deeply, methodically, obsessively. Temperatures during the winter of 1950 to 1951 dropped to -30 degrees Fahrenheit, about -34 Celsius. Frostbite claimed thousands of casualties. The ground itself became an adversary. Soldiers who failed to dig proper positions froze. Units that did not entrench became exposed to mortar fire and machine gun sweeps across open hillsides. The humble entrenching tool, essentially a compact spade, became indispensable. It allowed a soldier to create cover in minutes. It enabled drainage trenches that prevented flooding. It created insulation from frozen winds. A shallow scrape could mean the difference between life and death. In effect, a 5,000-year-old concept, reshape the earth to survive, outperformed modern machinery in immediate tactical survival. There is, a principle that serious military historians understand, but casual observers often overlook. Protection multiplies force more efficiently than offense. A soldier standing upright in open terrain is exposed to direct fire, shrapnel, and environmental stress. The same soldier behind even 12 to 18 inches of earth is exponentially harder to kill. Earth absorbs bullets. It deflects fragments. It conceals movement. It stabilizes temperature. In Korea's mountainous terrain, artillery dominated exposed positions. But once troops dug into reverse slopes and constructed interlocking trench systems, even heavy bombardment often failed to dislodge them. No new rifle design could accomplish that. No jet sortie could replace that. The ability to move earth quickly by hand remained decisive. The modern entrenching tool, or E-tool, is not a new invention. Its folding military versions evolved from earlier fixed-handle spades used throughout the Roman Empire. Roman legionaries carried tools as standard equipment, often more valued than additional weapons. The Roman army built fortified camps every single night. That meant digging ditches, raising earth walls, and constructing defensive perimeters daily. The Korean War soldier, carrying a compact spade, was participating in a continuous tradition stretching back millennia. The materials changed, wood to iron to steel. The folding mechanisms improved portability, but the core function remained unchanged: alter terrain to control risk. In survival terms, that continuity matters. We live in an age that, prioritizes technology over fundamentals. Firearms evolve rapidly. Communication systems advance annually. But hand tools are often dismissed as primitive. This is a strategic mistake. When supply chains break, when machinery fails, when fuel becomes scarce, earth remains workable. Soil remains movable. Gravity still functions. The digging tool requires no battery, no signal, no ammunition. It works in freezing conditions where electronics fail. It works when engines stall. It works quietly. And from a prepper's perspective, it accomplishes tasks that no modern high-tech solution can reliably replace. Building defensive berms, constructing concealed shelters, creating drainage systems, digging latrines safely away from camp, harvesting clay for insulation, preparing fire pits below wind level. Every one of these tasks appears in historical military records, not as dramatic moments, but as survival necessities. One of the overlooked realities of the Korean War is how often technologically superior forces struggled against enemies who mastered terrain. Chinese and North Korean forces dug extensive tunnel systems and fortified positions into hillsides. These were not improvised randomly. They followed principles as old as ancient siege warfare: depth, concealment, reinforcement, interconnection. Modern artillery struggled against properly engineered earthworks. History repeatedly shows this pattern. From ancient Mesopotamian city walls to World War I trenches to Korean ridgelines, the side that respects Earth survives longer. Technology changes rapidly. Terrain does not. If you are thinking seriously about resilience, not theatrics, not fantasy scenarios, then this lesson should resonate. A reliable digging tool is not optional equipment. It is foundational. In long-term grid-down scenarios, your ability to shape the land around you determines water control, shelter insulation, defensive positioning, food production, sanitation safety. A shovel or entrenching tool is effectively a force multiplier for human labor. The ancient civilizations that survived droughts, invasions, and climate shifts all shared one trait: they moved Earth intentionally. The Korean War reinforces that truth in modern context. Advanced weaponry did not eliminate the need for digging. It amplified it. There is something, I think, humbling about this continuity. 5,000 years ago, a Bronze Age farmer dug irrigation trenches to prevent famine. 2,000 years ago, a Roman legionary dug a defensive ditch before sleeping. 75 years ago, a soldier on a Korean ridgeline dug into frozen soil to survive artillery and sub-zero winds. The context changed. The stakes changed. The core tool did not. That continuity should inform how we think about preparedness. The most resilient technologies are often the oldest ones. When people imagine modern warfare, they picture aircraft carriers, drones, satellites, cyber systems. But on the ground, where survival actually happens, Earth still matters. Protection still matters. Digging still matters. The 5,000-year-old tool that shaped ancient civilizations proved more immediately life-saving in Korea than many of the era's celebrated machines. That is not romantic nostalgia. It is practical reality. For those of us who study history not just for knowledge, but for application, the lesson is clear. Do not dismiss what endures. Because the tools that survive 5 millennia tend to outlast technological cycles. And when circumstances strip away complexity, what remains is simple human capacity: hands, earth, and the will to shape one to defend the other. If that perspective resonates with you, you're in the right place. This channel exists to examine the overlooked foundations of survival history, not the glamorous myths, but the durable truths. And sometimes the most powerful tool in history is the one you can carry on your belt.